So welcome back to those of you that are in my class and not in my class. Appreciate you being here tonight. So I typically have a speech all set up, and I'm going to pull up my speech here to introduce you, Ben. Ben is the program manager for the Information Security Office at the Rochester Institute of Technology, our home, where he's developed a leading information security awareness program. And leading meaning that you can read about it in journals because people use RIT as an example of the work he has done. Ben is a member and former co-chair of the EDUCAUSE Internet to Security Awareness and Training Working Group of the Higher Education Information Security Council. There's an acronym waiting to happen. And is also an associate fellow and a past president of the Society for Technical Communications. Yay, communications. He holds the CISP, the CPTC, is a CPTC trainer, and is ITIL V3 certified, holding degrees from the University of Florida, Trinity International University, the University of Rochester, and an advanced certificate in technical information design from RIT. Some of you may know Ben. He's an adjunct faculty here, teaching classroom and online courses in cybersecurity policy and law, technical communications, and introverts and leadership. Prior to coming to RIT, he provided technical communications and change management consulting to a number of area Fortune 500 companies. And his current interests include working with other security awareness practitioners to develop effective security awareness programs and providing mentoring and coaching to new and aspiring introverted leaders, and speaking and presenting workshops in introverted leadership, creating security awareness programs, and technical communication. And with that, I introduce tonight our next alumni guest, Ben Welk from our Information Security Office, the program manager, with his presentation, We're All Winners, Gamification and Security Awareness. So there we are. And I'm going to admit a couple more students here as we get started. So thanks, Ben, for being here tonight. Most of our speakers have either been Q&A or light presentation. And so, you know, it's wide open on how you want to go. And if you've got something ready, let me know if I need to do anything here or give you any
Sure.
sharing.
I think I've already taken control. If you can see
Nice.
the
We're all set then.
slide. And I hope I have the requisite number of certification acronyms after my name
I don't
to be able
know.
to speak
Geez.
here tonight. It's
I only have
ridiculous.
one, so that's good. You're good. You're more than me.
It's kind of endemic to the field, I think,
Right?
unfortunately.
I think so.
So yeah, so thanks, Rick. I really appreciate this. Rick and I have been talking for a number of years actually about the things he's doing in security and the things that I've been working on. And it's nice to be able to get an opportunity to work together on something. So what I'm going to do tonight is share a little bit about gamification, security awareness in general, which is my passion. And I'm happy to take questions as we go along. I think I probably have 25, 30 minutes worth of material, so we should have plenty of time to actually have some conversation and stuff as well. Well, let me go ahead and get started here while it's still showing up. So at times I've tried to play this video, but it never works well, so I am not going to try to do it now. But this is fishy. And have you been here, not during COVID, you would have seen one of our students wandering around in this fish costume, drawing attention to fishing. But the specific thing that's here right now is the intro video to our cybersecurity escape room. And I will talk about that more as we get into the session tonight. The first thing I really want to cover is what is this idea of gamification? And I'm not sure if you all have been exposed to it or not, but there are really two different ways to look at gamification. And I wish I'd put it on the slide, it would have been great. One of them is games that relate specifically to learning different security concepts. The other idea is more what I'm looking at here, which is using gamification elements to make security awareness efforts more engaging so that people actually want to attend security awareness events and they tend to absorb the information and hold on to it better if there's a gamification aspect to it. So in terms of why gamifying security awareness, I think I've just spoken to that, but the idea again is that you want meaningful engagement. You want people excited about a subject which sounds like it could be mind-numbingly boring in terms of, oh, what do I need to do to be safe online? What do I need to do to practice good security hygiene, which is the word that's in vogue this year. But the idea generally is I'm tasked with helping our university, and I'm helping others as well, really develop a culture around security awareness. And what that means is that I want to build strong roots. So you can see a picture here. It's a picture of a tree blowing in the wind. And this is related to an article I had published called Wind Trees and Security Awareness. And it's a bit of an odd title, but the idea has to do with what does our user community need to do to be good at security? And if this goes back to, there was a program back in the, I think it was 1970s, called the Biodome. And I doubt very much any of you all were around during that time, but the idea of the Biodome was to build a kind of a habitation set of domes where everything could be done internally within there and be self-sustaining. So you had a group of people who lived in there. There's also a Pauly Shore movie out there called The Biodome, which I think probably references back to that, but that's not the part we're talking about. But the idea was that you would have a self-sustaining environment. And it was interesting because they grew their own crops, they grew trees. And what they found, what part I thought was really interesting, as the trees got taller, they just ended up toppling over. And what had happened is the trees never developed what they refer to as stress roots. Now, I never heard of the term stress roots before I started looking into this, but stress roots are developed when a tree encounters adversity, specifically adverse winds. So as winds blow against a tree, from whatever direction, the tree develops roots. You'll see pictures of trees on the edges of cliffs by the ocean or something, and they're all gnarled, and you can see the roots gripping strongly onto things all over the place. But the idea is that for a tree to stand, it needs strong roots. Now, I took this across to security awareness because when I look at an end user community, normal people, which some of you may fit on this call, but we're at RIT, so I don't know. But the idea is that a community needs to develop strong roots in order to withstand security attacks and cyber criminals and all of the things that come our way around cybersecurity. So I saw this kind of example of what happened with the Biodome and thought it made a lot of sense around how do you build a community that's resistant to cyber attacks. And the idea is that you always need some wind. And it doesn't have to be a strong wind that buffets the trees, but you always need at least that steady breeze of security awareness type activities coming in from different directions so that you're exposed to different threat vectors. I could talk about phishing awareness several times a day for the rest of my life. Well, maybe not because it didn't really get started until 2003. But that topic tends to override everything else with end user communications and end user security awareness. So that's great. I can have the wind always blowing in that direction, but that does nothing for us if an attack comes in from another direction. The tree would topple because it's only built to withstand attacks or withstand wind from one direction. So that's the idea of this wind, trees, and security awareness. Now, one thing, I've been at RIT, I guess I got my official 15th year recognition this year. So I've been here a number of years now. And during that time, we've been able to build a foundation around security awareness. We have digital self-defense classes, which typically have been in-person instructor-led classes. We follow a kind of security awareness calendar where we focus on different topics from month to month and make sure that we have messaging, especially in our social media, around these different topics. Again, we have a social media presence, though I have to admit it is tending towards the not student group at this stage because we have a very strong following on Facebook. We are on Twitter, have just touched Instagram. I think we're going to start doing a lot more with that over the next year. And quite frankly, we're not really sure what to do with TikTok either way, because it is so problematic in terms of cybersecurity. But I also recognize it's where most of the students are. We also tend to leverage events. So things like homecoming, when there used to be a hockey game in the fall, we would maybe do things around that, or new student orientation. Try to find these different events that we could take advantage of to talk more about security issues. So, in terms of inspiration, where do the ideas come from? For me, a lot of the ideas, frankly, come from my student workers. We always have at least one or two security engineering, either co-ops or part-time workers, and I almost always have a communication student who comes in without necessarily having the technical background, but they understand communications and they can pick up the technical cybersecurity stuff without being lost in things like code and stuff like that. So, what inspires us? We come up with ideas, we talk, we chat, we brainstorm, we see these disparate elements in different areas and we pull them together. So, one of the things that we did a couple of years ago was a digital self defense dojo. And as all of you are aware, I'm sure that dojo is a term that's used in martial arts. It's a training center. So this was essentially a security awareness training program. We had Richie. Rick is the namesake, whatever you would call it, the namer of Richie, I guess would be what it is. The whatever. We have Richie in his hockey jersey, but he's also wearing a gi. So he's in a martial arts outfit and he has a tiger belt on. So this is probably the strangest purchase I ever made through anything here, when I ordered an American Girl dolls kimono or karate outfit, and found out that it fit Richie doll more or less. The sleeves are rolled up, the pants legs are all rolled up, but it still works. So we wanted to have this idea of a digital self-defense dojo. What can we do to provide something that was engaging, that would provide training around security awareness? So our goals with the program were to socialize best practices. We identified, I think at that point, it was 13 different things that we wanted people to do around security awareness. And we also wanted to increase participation in the training program. We could create whatever we want to, but if we can't get people engaged with it, it's kind of pointless. So the structure of the programs, we married martial arts belts and scouting with the idea of gaining merit badges in different areas, and the whole idea of gamification, where you would essentially, you get a certain number of badges, you level up to a different belt level. And you can see the badges, they ranged everything from mobile security to a phishing expert if they passed a phishing quiz that we had, multi-factor authentication using a password safe, a bunch of different things. But what happened is that as people participated, they would earn these different levels of belts. And Tiger Belt was obvious, for the top level belt. Some of the stuff just kind of writes itself. So we created this program. These are actually magnets. These were physical belts, or physical badges in this sense. Created a website to support it and physical badges. And we piloted it with, what do they call them? So the Department of Alumni Affairs and Advancement. And I know I do not have the right name, but we worked with them. It was about a 100-person division within RIT. Now you can also see it says gift cards on there. So what we did around that is we had everyone who participated was entered into a drawing for a $25 gift card. I think we offered about 3 of them through the course of the program, but we got somewhere around 80 out of the 100 members of the division to participate. And a good number of them worked their way all the way up to the Tiger Belt, because they became very competitive because they could display their badges in their offices. And some people absolutely posed for the photos, as you can see, but people were really excited. And we heard word of mouth that people would kind of be checking out to see, well, they've got those badges, I don't have that badge yet. So the engagement kind of drove itself, because there were tangible rewards they could see. There were gift certificates that helped attract them into participating to start with. And the way the website was set up, they could always check on see what level they were at and what they needed to do to advance to the next level. So we did that as a pilot program. And one very cool thing about it, it was written up in the Chronicle of Higher Education, which for us is like being in the New York Times or something like that. So that was really, really exciting. We were one of 3 cybersecurity awareness programs featured in universities. So that's one of the programs that we looked at where we brought in a gamification element that reinforced the types of behavior that we wanted to see. And we also rewarded badges for taking our different classes and things like that as well. So that's one example of gamification. We also put together a physical escape room. Now, we've had to make some changes, but our goal was to leverage escape room popularity. I don't know what you all have seen over the last couple of years, but escape rooms are ridiculously popular. Seems to be the type of activity that small groups wanted to engage in. So we decided we would develop a physical escape room to teach cybersecurity awareness. And there's always, so how are we going to prioritize it? What's going to make us do it? Well, we offered it to the first year experience RIT 365 cohorts. And for 2019, we brought 150 students through the escape room in groups of about 10, I think is what we ended up with. And overall got good results. I mean, we got the usual, it was okay. And we had some people who were really into it. It was, typical type results around it. We also were able to bring several staff groups through it. And we did the whole competitive thing in terms of how much time is it going to take you to solve it and keeping a leaderboard and all that sort of stuff. So one of the things that was a problem is that RIT doesn't have a dedicated escape room space, which is actually kind of surprising when I think about it now, but maybe that's something that'll work itself into one of the newer buildings. We could put it in the Global Cybersecurity Institute. I mean, why not? Solve this cryptology puzzle and you can leave the room, that sort of thing. So basically, we had to make it portable because we kept using different rooms. So you can see some of the components here. There are also a great number of posters and things. But we had a lockbox, 2 different types of locks on there, different clues that they had to solve. Very excited when they finally got the lockbox opened, not so excited when they realized there were more puzzles within the lockbox to work through. But typically a group could get through it in anywhere from about 25 minutes for a good number of the student groups to 48 minutes for one of the staff groups that readily admitted that they totally overthought everything trying to figure the thing out. So different games, we had a little fishing game with a fishing rod and little fish, and we used invisible ink, that sort of thing, a black light flashlight so you could pick it up. All sorts of the things you might see in a typical escape room. We also included a bunch of sample emails that were printed out, and some of them were phishing emails, some of them were legitimate emails, and part of what the participants had to do was identify which were the phishing emails, and there were codes built into it, and they had to pick up the codes and solve the codes. We had a tremendous amount of fun with it. We were launching it out to the whole university, and then COVID. So could not figure out a way to really offer this in a socially distanced environment. It's kind of hard to do. So we knew that we would need to virtualize it. So we had heard of a couple of virtual cybersecurity escape rooms that were out there, but one of my students who did an amazing job on this essentially virtualized the physical escape room. And we were able to keep a couple of the puzzles. We had to build a lot of new puzzles, but we're able to offer the escape room through Zoom. The cohorts were 25 students. We broke them into 3 break rooms, had 3 facilitators, and let them play their way through the escape room. Now, it needed to be a little bit more linear than a typical escape room because of the way that we had to offer it. But again, we put another 150 students went through the escape room this fall. So I've got to look at the survey results, but we were able to teach them about best practices around mobile security. What does it mean? Should you have location services on? Should you have some kind of passcode or biometrics type lock on it? That sort of thing. We did use the same phishing emails. So that part we retained. We taught something new in terms of password construction and the best way to create passwords. And they had a password strength checker, and they had to get things to match up right. And we also had a simple cryptography problem in there, not because we were trying to teach cryptography, but we needed a really good fourth game, and a cryptography thing is a very easy thing to do. So they had to go through a cryptography decoder, encoder online and figure out what the codes were to get through it. So that was our virtual escape room, and that we'll be offering more this year. But we have also now partnered with a security vendor that offers a cyber escape room as well. Again, you get the idea. We're trying to do there is a play factor to it, but there's also an engagement factor with it. So that's some of the gamification. Now, one of the things I mentioned early on was this whole problem of phishing, and how we could really spend all our time working on this and probably pick up a good number of the threats to the university and the individuals that way. And one of the things that we did, and almost all businesses now and most schools are doing some version of self-phishing or simulated phishing type program. So this we're not doing it currently. We made a conscious decision that we did not want to run a phishing program with the amount of stress that we were dealing with already dealing with COVID. So we've kind of set that aside for now. But our goals with it, we really wanted to improve end user recognition of phish. We wanted to improve timeliness of reporting. And we wanted to, soon we were going to be able to improve our baseline detection rate by 25%. So one of the other thing that we went in with this is the idea that we want this to be very positive and not punitive. And if you look at most of the current thinking around security awareness, the idea is that you are not trying to beat your end users until they can do things the right way and not fall for phishing attacks and things like that. It's to provide a positive environment and to reinforce good behaviors. And one of the key things with this was creating the atmosphere, setting an expectation that because you, for this time as staff, you work at RIT, you're going to be really good at recognizing phish. Now, whether that's really true or not, I can't speak to it either way. Our numbers did come back really good. But the idea was to set the expectation that you're not a victim, that you can spot these things, that you can address these things. And as part of that, we did not provide the names to the managers in terms of who was not identifying the phishing and who was. We made absolutely sure we would anonymize the results, because we honestly wanted this to be a pain-free experience and a positive experience for people. Now, granted, the key message around phishing is always just don't respond to email requests or your password, or don't click on links. But we did go beyond that. So we worked on a mnemonic RID for report, inspect, delete RIT of phishes. So we wanted to RID RIT of phishes. Not doing too much with that right now, but the idea initially was to let's get it something that's easy for people to remember, because the whole goal of this thing is really to change behavior and to habituate the behavior, so that we are trying to strengthen the culture. And you get these mnemonics and things like that, and it's just something that really helps people remember, oh, I need to RID RIT of phish. We also created a fishbowl. Number of universities had already done this, but we have a section on the RIT Information Security website where we post examples of phish that come in, not all of them, but ones that we worry about. And we also have little call outs to indicate what the things are that people should be looking at. So we have a fishbowl for people to go check and see, hey, has this been reported or not? Around the structure we did around the program, did an initial announcement. I'm not one of these people who believe that we really wanted to surprise people by starting with a phishing program, so a simulated phishing program. So we let people know that it was going to be coming. Probably about a month ahead of time. Didn't say anything about it after that, but at least wanted to give them a heads up that it was coming. We did most of this within finance administration, which was around 900 people at that point in time, and worked our way through the divisions and the different departments with, say, one specific division or department might get 3 fish in a given month. Everybody would get one. And then we did follow-up presentations with these departments to talk about their results and also to recognize the people who did well. So one thing that's very different in terms of this graph is every other simulated fishing that I've seen through vendors is always about the negatives. It's always, well, what was your click rate? How many people both clicked and entered their credentials? Essentially, how many people failed? But we flipped this. We didn't want to approach it that way. What we wanted to do was reward good behavior. Now, the best thing for us at RIT and probably most places is getting those fish reported quickly so they can be purged from the mail system and we don't have to worry about anybody clicking on them and no one else has to worry about it either. So we measured the number of reports we got in the first minute on a given fish, the number of reports we got, and the percentage of people who ignored the fish totally. Now, it's kind of a slightly counterintuitive metric, and you can tell flipping it around that, oh, that first one, it was probably about 8% who fell for it, that sort of thing. But we very much wanted to flip this on its head from what it normally is to recognize the good behavior and reward the good behavior. So in terms of what the results looked like, this is how we presented them to the departments. It's 15 first-minute reports. The report rate was 14% on that one. Reported overall 35% report rate, which honestly is really good for something around fishing. And 97% of the people ignored it. So for this one, I think that means that like 6 people would have actually potentially clicked on it. But again, we're trying to reward good behavior, emphasize that people could do this and do well at it. So I had talked early on in the one slide where I talked about we wanted to improve our baseline by 25%. I had assumed we would have it around a 70% baseline in terms of people who ignored the fish. We started in the 90th percentiles. So it was not, that 25% change is not something we can necessarily see. It was really kind of hard to get it up much higher. But it was also very affirming because I have spent 15 years working on security awareness at RIT and did not really have a good idea of how our people would do because we hadn't measured it. So this was a very good news slide to me and good news metrics in general that yes, I have not totally wasted my life for 15 years trying to help people with security awareness. We also recognized the fishing expert, whoever in each group reported the most fish and hadn't fallen for any of them. And we gave them a special badge and we gave them a mug in a departmental presentation. So they would have something to brag with. Other types of things we have done is try to leverage new student orientation. I had mentioned the fish costume. The Information Security Office at one point had a regular slot during new student orientation. We don't currently have that. We are working to try to get it back. But we at one point had all 3,000 plus students in the field house listening to a series of 5-minute lightning talks around security awareness. But since we don't have that, we figured what are the different things we could do? So we worked on getting Fishy out, milling around with the students, not speaking. It's a mascot. Mascots don't speak, but handing out cards about fishing. Also have a picture here where this wanted poster, that's the other thing they were handing out. And again, we got more traffic to the fishbowl, but this was generally an awareness thing and something that was not really even occurred to me to measure the metrics when we handed out the cards. So those are some of the things that we've done. Those are mainly things that have worked. I'll talk about some things that really flopped totally. But the exciting thing in the job that I have is I've been given the freedom to innovate and experiment and try new things. And for me, at least, that's a very important role. I do not do well when it's maintenance. And if I got everything solved, it's kind of like, well, where's my next challenge? I got to move on to my next challenge. So some of the other things we did last year, and Professor Mislin participated in this as well, but we did what we called Tiger Tech Talks, and they were live sessions in the Wallace Library, and we had different discussions about different security topics. And if I thought about it, Rick, I would have changed out the slide so it was yours
It's
on
okay,
here.
no worries.
But Rick talked about mobile devices and mobile security, and of course got to bring some of his collection of toys in to show them some of the old ways that people used to text and all of that sort of thing. So it was always kind of fun. But this was great because this gave us an opportunity to provide information about very specific topics. Things that didn't work. We did a fishy friends and foes, which looks horrid every time I read it. Security awareness costume contest. So we had $100 Barnes and Noble gift card we were giving away for a prize for this. We tried to do a costume contest, security awareness team costume contest. All of the students who worked for us showed up. One student came in costume. It happened to be a Harry Potter costume, but it was the only person who came in costume. So he actually ended up winning the gift card. But point is, we're willing to try new things and just try to get engagement. That one was obviously a dismal failure, and I've shared it at conferences in terms of where we've actually talked about things that have absolutely failed. Few other things that we've looked at over the years, Snapchat filters. We were looking, and we may come back to this because I know Snapchat is still pretty popular. One of the things you can do with Snapchat is geofencing, where you pick a particular area, say if it was homecoming and the hockey game, it could be around the war memorial. You pay a fixed set of money to have that area for however many hours, and you can offer different types of filters. Now, these are not as cool as the turning yourself into a bee or a deer or anything like that. So we never really quite got that, but this is one thing again that we explored. Probably worth revisiting it, but we'll need to get a little bit better with what we do with it. Pokemon Go. So the year that swept across here, which I don't remember, 2017, somewhere around there. In that summer, when we started hearing about Pokemon, my fear was that we would get to the fall and there would just be herds of RIT students walking around with their faces in their phones. Now, we do see this actually, but herds of RIT students walking around with their faces in their phones looking for Pokemon sites and Pokemon gems. So what we did with this is the idea was that if we know where these sites are, we can actually put physical media up, physical posters up and things like that, so that when people go there to capture their Pokemon, they can actually see a poster that's related to security awareness. Didn't really get very far with it, but again, we were trying to kind of capture the wave of what was going on at the time. And again, for us, it's always very much about where is our population at? How can we go meet them? Because we do not expect them to come to us. So general discussion, Rick, which we do have now, is should you gamify? What kinds of things? What would you gamify? And what things would you not gamify? And I think we can open the discussion around that. And I am interested in your feedback and what do you think about, the ideas about how we're approaching things here. So I'll throw it to you to get your students engaged.
Great, thanks for the lead up. So there are a few, I'm looking at the roster here really quickly because I know we've had students from other classes as well. Are these from your class as well, or
I have
just
one
in general? Just one
okay. From this semester, one possibly from another class, but yeah.
I see one from the boot camp that's running. I see my class, obviously, and then there's a couple of guests in here that I don't recognize. So let's kind of go through this, right? I mean, what are the current games that people are playing, right? Or what is popular in the in the space today. And I know I've
Yeah.
got a few people in here that play games, so
Yeah,
maybe
you're
somebody
gonna
can
you're
help
gonna
me
have
out.
to tell us. And I know Pokemon has kind of made a bit of a comeback. So
Or you mentioned no to TikTok because of whatever, but maybe there's something there. I know that there's a hacker on TikTok that has gone through some really basic skills and been very useful. So and there's others obviously, but um, I guess we're reaching out to you guys a little bit here today. Guest reaction or a student or crowd reaction.
so what do you think would work?
Well, Professor, I've got one for you. I think, as in, if you should gamify, I really think that for the topic of awareness and just making people conscious of threats like phishing, I think gamify is a great way to, like you said, get people engaged, have people learning, but have them have fun with it. Um, but on a different coin, something like TikTok, for example, um, how like I was wondering if there was anything you would do um, with gamification or otherwise that of threats that people are aware of but they don't necessarily care, because I've expressed to some people, hey, like TikTok is not, maybe not safe, maybe you shouldn't use it, and they just don't really care. And I was wondering if you had anything on that topic of what can you do there.
Yeah, so it's an interesting question, Jake, and we did talk a little bit about TikTok in the class before this tonight. One of the presentations was about China and
Oh
the
yes.
control they have and over the citizenry about information and access to things. Um, and I have so little familiarity with it, which is one of the reasons that we're looking for students in terms of TikTok, about even knowing where to go with it. Rick, you had mentioned a hacker that's providing short bursts of information, I'm assuming,
Yeah, yeah.
around different concepts. So that kind of thing makes a lot of sense. I'm not sure what I would gamify around it,
Yeah,
but that's
I
because
don't.
I just don't know it well enough yet.
Well, I mean, and maybe there is something there, right? I mean, there's so many different people that are making that their platform. I mean, there's a guy that does ADHD things, right? And as a parent of a child that has it and possibly has it myself, right? There's another guy who just checks in with mental. Um, um, I can see him. He's the bearded guy, and he's always you're number one. He's got these positive messages every day. And I look at it, it's like, sometimes he has some educational twists to that. So, taking I think the bigger, arc here, the longer arc of, how do we use tools for educational purposes that are already in the crowd of the students that we want to reach, right? So how do you take, well, like Jake just mentioned, maybe the not so obvious awareness, right? So two-factor authentication. We've beaten this one, but not everybody still uses it. Why is it important, right? And doing those, finding the way to just bring all of those little things to life. So it's not so much a game. However, maybe there's a way to do multiple accounts in TikTok and actually have clues in those different accounts to actually find the things that are part of the answer or things like that. I mean, again, it's the escape room twisted in a sense.
Scavenger hunt, all sorts of
Yeah,
things
yeah,
like that
there it
could be
is.
blended in. It is interesting though, Jay, because specifically around the privacy elements, it is really tough to get people's attention around privacy now. And I've not, and again, Jared, I think I had you in class as well. As yeah, so welcome. I'm glad you're here. But it's very tough. And I would say some of it does appear to be generational. Some of it may be just because what a lack of privacy can do may not have really sunk in yet. It may just be that maybe it doesn't matter that much. I mean, it's just a hard thing, but it's really hard to get people to pay attention around privacy. And I think part of that goes into the, well, there's nothing I can do about it. I'm going to be a victim. It's going to happen. But that's exactly what we were trying to combat with the way we went after phishing. So maybe it is more of a mindset shift.
I was going to say many times too, it's not until you really feel it that it matters, right? It's the pain or the failure that makes the impact. And, you know, there have been times where in a game, right, the pain or failure makes you want to pick up your, you know, yourself and do it again and get to the next level.
Yeah, sorry, you lost another life on a privacy violation. Yeah.
That's right. So how do you bring that to that level, right? And I think that's kind of it. I think the other piece is too the engagement. I mean, you made a great point where, you know, we put $100 gift certificate out there and one person showed up. So it was either not the right gift or it was not something that was motivational enough or in the right direction. And maybe, you know, maybe somebody would have jumped at something different. I don't know what this crowd is after.
And
And obviously you didn't know either.
I have done worse.
Yeah.
So I was part of a panel where we did security follies and foibles, or whatever the word was, things that were absolute failures. And the first semester at RIT, and Hannah, and you will really appreciate this. The first semester at RIT, we were looking for giveaway items as part of our promotions, and we decided we'd use iPods and our MP3 players. And it was like, well, you definitely didn't think through your culture here very well, did you? And that has since become known as iPods for the deaf, I think is what it got the term that was coined. But by the same token, we had the woman who was giving me a hard time about that. When they did their multi-factor authentication, they did it in May, and they tried to make it Duo de Mayo, you know, because they used Duo for their MFA. And she said they had so many people upset with them for appropriating a cultural holiday for a cybersecurity event. So I have a calendar entry every May 2nd to make sure I ping her, just to ask her about the Duo de Mayo thing.
You know, I mean, it is this stretch that I think and you know, you're doing it for a university. Imagine this in the corporate culture, right? Of how do you get those people engaged, right? And you've got, you know, ages of 20 on, you know, to 60, and that whole mix of what is appropriate or what is acceptable or what is unique and to that culture. You know, the fact that you use RIT and the Tiger obviously lends itself to that. You can do that a little bit more, you know, easier. And so I wonder, right, are there things that are, you know, well, and I'm sure there are, right, within the news space or within the you know, the current trends, like you did with the Pokemon and what have you.
Well, the other thing is just recognizing the limited attention time that we have for things. So one of the things we will be launching in the spring is we will be doing essentially nano modules. There'll be like 1-minute videos around security awareness topics or security topics in general.
Yep.
I still have to work through how we're actually going to do it, because I love the idea of putting it on monitors around campus, but that's fine as long as we got students on campus. So,
Chris Roberts was on our first night of this webinar series and mentioned, I think it's Wiser Security, as in, and they're doing very short, like 3 to 5 minute. And they're all free and promotional, obviously. And maybe there's some thought to, you know, at least watching those and seeing if there's not something to glean from the shortness of those and the impact from there. That was a project he jumped in because he believed in the freeness of it, if you will.
yeah.
And for our culture, obviously, that would be great. What have you seen in gamifying of cyber that's, you know, working elsewhere, or have you, or not seen? Or not worked on that?
So we have partnered with a new security vendor, and there are a number of other universities that are partnering with them as well. And their approach has been towards positive security awareness.
Yeah.
So they've got like Family Feud games and things like that, but they're facilitated. They also have their cyber escape room online, which we signed a contract. So we have 1,000 seats for that, but I have to take people through 8 at a time, because an escape room is not any fun for anybody once you get too many people in there. So I'm seeing more interest in it. And honestly, it's scary because scary to me, at least, because I know that my EDUCAUSE colleagues picked up on this event and mentioned, oh, you should listen to Ben because he's the higher ed expert on security gamification, and it's like, I know what I don't know, but then also realizing, well, crap, I am probably as active in this space as anyone else. So there's a lot of collaboration going on, talking to colleagues at different universities, testing out ideas. What are things that we can try? What are we finding that's working? Where are issues that we weren't aware of that we can address through gamification type topics? So we've got a lot going on. The problem right now is we've also got this horrible pandemic thing going on, and that is taking so much focus just in terms of there's so many things that we got to get turned around so quickly, like the COVID testing for students before they go home,
Right.
which was like one of these projects that came in and, well, you got a week to get it all figured out.
Yeah.
And for IT, they did it, but the timelines are such things that we're just so not used to anymore, because for those of you who are in IT, the typical IT project goes at least twice as long as it should, at least twice as expensive as it should, and it may not even, it may fail anyway.
Right.
So we're in a very different world where we have to be very agile right now. So I suspect, I think we may be trying a burst of quick ideas and sticking with what works, because I don't know what we'll be able to do in terms of long-term investment into anything until things normalize next year at this time, maybe.
Maybe, yeah. Okay. Interesting thoughts and conversation, obviously. There are things that you and I have talked about in the past, and some of those things I've seen in some of my work, and I've seen in some of your work as well, and I appreciate that. And obviously want to keep working with you on some of those things as we go forward. And there are a couple of people on this call that are directly involved with the work I'm doing. Awesome. And so I wanted to make sure that they, at least heard kind of, the source, if you will, from some of the work we've talked about, both on our side and your side. So I appreciate you being here tonight. I don't know if we have any other questions for you. I haven't seen anything up in chat yet, other than what was left over. But I know we have some more time. If anybody has any questions for you, Ben, I'll leave it open. Is there any from our other list, Jared? Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, yeah, I have them pulled up here. If you just want me to put them all.
Yeah, sure, that's fine. So we did do some prep work for all of our speakers, and some of the hardest, easiest aspects of cybersecurity training. What's the easiest, what's hardest for creating the training?
Oh, that's a question. Oh, that's great. So I think so one of the key things I think is what are we going to focus on? And the focus is really driven by risk assessment and determining what essentially and I know Aldwin spoke last week, this idea of getting a risk register together for IT. And these are the key things that we are seeing currently that we need to focus on, and then creating awareness around those specific areas. The thing that always surprises me is that how much the threat landscape changes year to year, because the assumption I think is on my part as well, they're going to stick with this one thing, phishing, for example. But if you look at things like ransomware and the evolution of ransomware over the last couple of years, and how it's dropped off when Bitcoin has dropped down, it's picked back up when they realized that, hey, we could now force you to pay or we'll release your information, as opposed to just encrypting it. So there are a lot of things that have changed threat-wise. And I would say it's really a combination of a couple of things. I try to get a lot of inputs from a lot of different people who are not in cybersecurity. I want to see what's being done before COVID. I want to see what's being done in public health around communications, what's effective, what's not effective. Are there techniques that we can adopt from them? So looking at that, friends who are working in different areas, and it's like, well, maybe we can pull that element in and we can pull this element in. So a lot of it, there's a creative side to it, but there's also, I think, what are these different pieces of things that we can put together and try something new with and come up with meaningful metrics is always one of the biggest struggles around security awareness. But I mean, we've done all sorts of things. We do crazy things at conferences. There is a YouTube video out there of a parody, a Bob Dylan, Joan Baez parody, where we did a parody of Blowing in the Wind, but it's how many gift cards will one man buy sort of thing.
Mhm.
So we're willing to try these kind of crazy things, but I'm not giving a very good answer to this. I know that. But it's really, what are the priorities? What is the highest risk? Where can we reduce the risk profile the most? And let's figure out, what are we going to build around that, around awareness?
Part of it too, I think, in your senses, and I saw this, I think, a year or two ago, is the whole push for multi-factor authentication, or 2FA. And I know that there was a lot of posters being made and generated and saying, hey, we're moving in this new direction. Everybody needs to, get a dongle or get a phone registered. And part of this, I think, is it's almost marketing, right? As the main event of this. And it's not so much training per se, it's mental training, maybe by marketing and keeping it in front of you and keeping it in your face. The original poster series from OPSEC back in the day, where you'd put all these things, and the military used to do this as well, loose lips sink ships and all of those kind of material, collateral and marketing material. And it's the same in a sense, but the engagement is what you're bringing, with the gamifying and the engagement of, brain activity happening versus just reading something and saying, oh yeah, I'm not going to do that. Right. And so the engagement brings the pain, I think, sometimes too. And I keep going back to that, but you lose, you want to try again. And that's kind of the, I think.
Yeah. So we have that piece and the leveling up piece, but the marketing thing, yeah, you're right. Absolutely right. It's marketing. And which is why I love bringing in communication students or marketing. So I've had marketing students as well, because they understand people. Well, they understand people better or differently than most cybersecurity professionals would. And I know some of your speakers that you've had are very adept around the social side of things and understanding human nature and what works and what doesn't work. But in general, as you well know in the industry, those people are few and far between. There are a huge amount of technologists and focused on what are the technical controls. And the human side is, to me, it's fascinating, but it's also much harder to secure than technical controls.
I'm almost stretching this a little bit, but marketing is almost like theater and stagecraft, right? Where you're setting the environment and you're putting it out there in a sense that this is the world we live in. And here's the, I'm thinking even in a video game, right? Where you're walking through the town and you notice the little things that are on the buildings or in the hallway or in the tube as you're walking down through the tunnel. Well, so it's that same environment that you want to create in the reality of the world we have around us.
Well, and RIT had that huge initiative around Second Life. It's got to be 15 years ago, 14 years ago now, or something like that. Yeah. We were there. We had security posters up in Second Life as well, just because, people are going to, of course, it didn't. Yeah. So it's weird where it's gone, but it was still that idea. Let's get to where people are.
Sure. And then Minecraft. So, different place. We got to get there.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I get it. Interesting. Another question: how much do you think RIT as an institution stresses cybersecurity? Is it enough?
Did you all ask Aldwin this one also?
No, we didn't.
Oh, you really should have.
So yeah.
I know that answer. Much more fun to put him on the spot.
And I guess be careful, is your job depends on it.
So no. I would say it's tricky, because I would say that the respect for the program is higher now, bigger. I'm talking about our stuff, not the academic side. We do get more notoriety. We do have people saying, hey, what's RIT doing? Sort of thing. but there's also I came into a situation where there was no real budget for anything, so I would never ask for anything because I didn't think we could have anything.
Right.
That's moderated now, and it's like, oh, we can have a partner. What do you mean we can have a security awareness partner? You'll pay for that. So I would say that I think overall, I hesitate to say we're doing well, because all it takes is one thing to come in the
Sure.
door that's
But
bad.
it's increased from what it has been, right? I
Oh
mean,
yeah, no, it's definitely. And so when I talked about the phishing numbers, um, I originally thought we'd have a 70% recognition rate or non-response rate to it, and we started in the 90th percentile. So we know the stuff that we've done over the years has worked, um, and it's been a variety of things. But I would say actually there's a huge focus on cybersecurity at RIT now because the board of trustees is very interested around cybersecurity. So there is far more understanding of the impact of it now than there was 5 years ago. So I would say, yes, that's actually moving in the right direction. Now that I've had time to actually think about it for a second.
right. Okay. All right. I'm going to jump to the last question here. And this one's just we've asked everybody kind of thing. Is there a daily habit that's helped you flourish, remain disciplined in the space of cyber, right? Is there something that you read or do or watch or listen to?
It's not daily, but I have calls, which are on Zoom now. I probably have 8 to 10 monthly calls with different practitioners at different universities, who are doing security awareness. And we chat through things and we share ideas and we collaborate on things. So I would say that across universities, collaboration has been enormous in terms of our success and understanding what's worked, saved us some growing pains on some things. But overall, I would say that is the number one thing is my colleagues at other universities.
I'm going to pull back from Chris Hadnagy's suggestion last week. Who are you talking to that's not in your lane?
So I talked within RIT, there are people in student affairs. There were people who were in enrollment services who have left the university, that I talk to on a regular basis.
And I guess the reason is why, right? What are you gleaning outside of the cyberspace? I am gleaning
a totally different perspective on how things are approached and how things are done. And I think that part is absolutely critical because I think we get very set in what our lanes are and what we think will work and what won't work. And I've kind of alluded to it a little bit, but it's very much the idea of these people are working over in public health. I have a friend in Texas who is moving into medical writing and public health type things, and just chatting with her about how do they approach things. And it gives us different ways to approach things as well. So for me, I don't know that we would stagnate, but it makes such a tremendous difference to be chatting with people outside of our field. And I don't want to talk to a bunch of technologists because I honestly don't think that's the important part. And I don't think it's the most effective part.
Right.
So I will talk to friends all over the place or in technical communication, as you alluded to too, friends all over the world who look at things differently. They don't do things in Australia the way they do here. So.
It's funny, we have a guest from Australia actually tonight on. So funny that you mentioned that. Anyway, all good. Anyone have any questions tonight for Ben before we end the third night of our series? Again with the crickets. I think we're good though. We've had a great night tonight, Ben, and I appreciate you being a part of this, especially bringing your specific knowledge and topic, because it is near and dear to me and the things that I'm currently involved with at RIT. So thanks again for that, and thanks for shedding some light on what happens behind the scenes with Fishy and other things in the Information Security Office. Completely appreciate you being here tonight.
Yeah. Oh, it's always a pleasure. I really appreciate the opportunity. So Jared, it's good to see you. And Jake, I'm surprised you're here, but I appreciate it.
So hang out, Ben, and I'll tell you the story afterwards. Okay.
Sounds good.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for being here tonight. Really appreciate you attending again. And next week, we have Chris Muscovitis and Marco Di Pasquale. And if you need to check out the website, I'm sure you'll find it. Just Google Cyber Speaker Seminar Saunders and RIT, and it'll pop up right to the top. Also, all these are being recorded and saved to Saunders College of Business YouTube channel. So you can go back and watch me make mistakes and flub through questions with our previous guests as I have. So appreciate you again, Ben, and appreciate everybody being here tonight. And a special thank you to both of our interpreters, Hannah and Melissa, for keeping up with all this technical and goofy jargon that us cybery guys have sometimes. So thank you so much. Have a good night, everyone.
Okay, thank you.